Bedtime stories for kids. The Red Shoes. Once upon a time, in a quiet village nestled between fields of wheat and rows of tall pines, lived a little girl named Karen. She was poor, so poor that her only shoes were patched together from rags. Still, she walked barefoot more often than not, running through grass and mud with bright eyes and wind in her hair. Karen lived with her sickly mother in a small cottage. Life was hard, but they had each other. Her mother often stroked her hair and said, "You may not have fine clothes, Karen, but you have a kind heart. That's worth more than gold." Then one winter, her mother fell terribly ill. Karen did everything she could, fetched water, made soup, sang lullabies through the night. But nothing could stop the sickness. When her mother passed away, Karen cried until her tears froze on the window glass. She was left with no family, no home, and no shoes at all. At her mother's funeral, an old carriage pulled up beside the graveyard. From it stepped a wealthy old lady in black lace and jewels. She looked down at the barefoot girl kneeling in the snow. "Who is this child?" she asked sharply. "Karen," the priest replied. "She has no one now." The old woman studied Karen for a moment, her eyes narrowing. "Bring her to my home. I will raise her." Karen didn't understand why this grand lady had chosen her. But with nowhere else to go, she followed the carriage into a world of silk cushions, crystal mirrors, and marble halls. The old woman dressed her in fine clothes and taught her manners, embroidery, music. But there was one thing she would not allow. Shoes must always be black, she said sternly. No color, no foolishness. Karen nodded, though her heart fluttered with longing when she saw bright ribbons or colored slippers in town windows. Still, she obeyed, mostly, until one spring day, when everything changed. They were walking through the village square when Karen saw them. Red shoes, glinting in the sunlight behind a cobbler's window. They were glossy like cherries, soft as rose petals, and beautiful beyond anything she had ever seen. Her breath caught. Oh! Later, when the old woman wasn't watching, Karen tiptoed back to the shop and stared at them again. The cobbler noticed her. "Try them on," he said with a smile. "No charge." I shouldn't," she whispered. "Just a moment," he said, slipping them onto her feet. They fit perfectly, and when she took a step, it felt as if the world had turned to music beneath her toes. She twirled once, then quickly pulled them off. "How much are they?" "Far more than you can pay," he replied gently. "But if it's meant to be, you'll find a way." Karen left the shop with the shoes still in her heart. That evening, she made a choice. A quiet, secret, selfish choice. When the old woman's black shoes wore out, Karen replaced them. Not with black, but with red. The morning of confirmation day dawned crisp and bright. Karen stood before the old lady in a beautiful white dress, her hair brushed smooth, her hands folded neatly. But it was not her gown that caught everyone's eye as they entered the church. It was her shoes. Bright, gleaming, ruby red shoes that caught the sun like fire. Gasps followed her footsteps as she walked down the aisle. The villagers whispered, "Red shoes, for a holy day." The old lady, nearly blind, squinted but said nothing. Karen noticed the stares and lifted her chin proudly. "They're only shoes," she whispered to herself. What harm could they do? After the ceremony, as the organ played and the church bells rang, Karen stepped out into the sunlight and twirled. Just once, the shoes shimmered, and she smiled. That night, as they returned home, the old lady's maid whispered harshly, "Where did those shoes come from?" Karen flushed. I thought they were appropriate." "They're not," snapped the maid. "They are vain and foolish, and you wore them to church. You ought to be ashamed." Karen said nothing, but when she reached her room, she stood before the mirror, staring at the red shoes. They were beautiful. They made her feel seen, alive. Just for a moment, she whispered. She slipped them on and danced, once around the room, twice, then she couldn't stop. Her feet moved on their own, spinning her in circles. What's happening?" She stumbled into a table, knocking over a vase. but her feet kept dancing, faster and faster. "Stop, please." Only when she collapsed from exhaustion did the shoes finally still. Gasping, Karen tore them off and hurled them under the bed. "It was just my imagination," she whispered. But in her heart, she knew better. The next morning, she wore her black shoes again, but they pinched and dragged. Her feet ached for the red ones. And that afternoon, when no one was looking, she wore them again. She danced, and again, she couldn't stop. This time, it took nearly an hour to pull them off. Tears filled her eyes. "What's wrong with me?" The red shoes gleamed from where they lay, almost smugly. Not long after, the old lady fell ill. She lay in bed, frail and pale, calling for Karen in the dark. "Please, stay by me, child." But Karen, ashamed to admit it, even to herself, longed to be out. The house was too quiet, too dim. She missed the sunlight and the shoes. One morning, a grand ball was announced in the next town. The finest guests would attend. Music, lanterns, dancing. Karen looked at the old woman, sleeping quietly by the fire. Then she looked at the red shoes in her trunk. "Just for a little while," she whispered. "She won't even notice I'm gone." She slipped the shoes on, and the moment her feet touched the ground, they took her. She spun once, then twice, then again and again. "No," she cried. "I didn't mean to." But the shoes danced, out the door, down the road, through the forest. She passed the village chapel, where the doors stood open. The priest stepped outside and gasped, "Karen, stop." But she whirled past him, tears on her cheeks. The shoes led her through fields and rivers, past startled travelers and shouting farmers. Days passed. She danced through rain and nightfall, through mud and snow. She could not rest. She could not eat. "Please," she sobbed, "let me go. I'll never wear them again. I'll never." But the shoes did not listen. They dragged her onward, a crimson blur across the countryside, until at last, with her strength nearly gone, she collapsed in front of a small chapel in the woods. The door creaked open. An old woodsman appeared, his face kind and lined with time. "Child," he said softly, "you wear the cursed shoes." Karen looked up, trembling. "Can you take them off?" He looked at her sadly. "Not without sacrifice." She closed her eyes. "I'll do anything. Please." The old man nodded slowly, and from within his coat, he took an axe. Karen stared at the axe in the woodsman's hands, her heart pounding. "You must choose," he said gently. "Your freedom, or the shoes." She looked down at her feet. The red shoes were still moving, twitching faintly. Her legs trembled from exhaustion, and her soul from shame. "I chose vanity," she whispered. "I turned from love. I ignored kindness. And now," tears spilled freely as she looked up. "Please, help me." The woodsman nodded once, and with one swift, sorrowful motion, he struck. The shoes leaped from her feet, still dancing. They spun away into the trees, vanishing into shadow. Karen fell to her knees in the snow, crying not from pain, but from overwhelming relief. The woodsman wrapped her in a warm cloak, lifting her gently. "Your punishment ends," he said, "but your journey does not." Karen wandered the countryside for many days, leaning on a crutch the woodsman had carved for her. Wherever she went, people saw not a broken girl, but a quiet one, a kind one. She helped in kitchens, tended gardens, sang to children. She prayed often in small chapels, not for her feet to heal, but for her heart to stay humble. "Let me walk in grace," she whispered, "even if I cannot dance." One spring morning, as she swept the steps of a little church, the priest stepped outside and paused. "I know you," he said. Karen lowered her eyes. "I was the girl with the red shoes." The priest said nothing for a long time. Then he reached out and gently took her hand. "You are the girl who let them go." He led her into the chapel. And there, among light and lilies, Karen felt peace for the first time in years. Not because she had been forgiven by others, but because she had learned to forgive herself. She never danced again, but she walked slowly, quietly, with a warm smile and a heart full of wisdom. And in every village she passed, people said, "That girl. She walks as if every step is a prayer."